Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about the Surrealism movement. Surrealism lasted from the 1920s to about the 1960s. It was a very revolutionary movement, and the artists involved were interested in the mind and the subconscious. More specifically, they were interested in the ideas that could be found there. Here we have an example of a surrealist piece of artwork by Joan Miro, The Carnival of Harlequin. Surrealism began in Paris, France in 1924. The artists in France were influenced by the Dada movement, which had a lot of illogical, nonsensical aspects to it. Surrealists wanted to free the imagination, but more than that, they wanted to try to change society itself. Surrealists were inspired by this guy, Sigmund Freud. Freud was a famous psychologist, one of the most famous of his times, and he was the founder of a study called Psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis was a set of techniques used to study the unconscious mind and all of the ideas that could be found there. Surrealists wanted to free the unconscious mind because they believed that doing so was the key to unleashing their imagination. Now let's talk a little bit about what exactly that unconscious mind is. Well, think about your brain, your thoughts, your ideas, your beliefs. When you think something, and you're aware of it, that's a conscious thought. When you're wondering what you're going to eat for lunch, when you're trying really hard to remember what you learned while you're taking your history test, that's all conscious thought. It's the voice inside your head. You're thinking about it, and you know you're thinking about it. Now what about thoughts or ideas that we aren't aware of? Things like our personality, our beliefs, sometimes even our feelings, exist in our subconscious or our unconscious mind. This spot in the middle, where both the conscious and the unconscious are activated, is surrealism. We take the ideas from our unconscious mind and we bring them into our conscious mind. Now, to access the unconscious, surrealists would use a variety of techniques. One of the most well-known is to create art out of their dreams or visions that they had. Sometimes they would even try to hypnotize each other, trying to access those ideas in their unconscious mind. Many surrealist pieces of artwork are drawn from this idea of a dreamscape. Here on the screen, I have Leonora Carrington's And Then We Saw the Daughter of the Minotaur. This entire piece looks and feels like a dream. Surrealist art was illogical. It didn't make sense. Now, when surrealists weren't using their dreams to make art, they used a variety of other techniques to access their subconscious as well. Surrealists would try to make art without thinking about making art, in the hopes that doing so might allow their subconscious ideas to push forward and just come out naturally. One method of doing this was called automatic drawing. An artist might use pen on paper, paint, pencils, any number of materials to just create lines and shapes and parts of figures without ever trying to control the direction of the drawing. Another way of doing this was playing a surrealist game called Exquisite Corpse, where several artists would collaborate together on a single surreal drawing, normally by folding a piece of paper into segments, and each artist would draw a different piece of the figure. Here's another example of an exquisite corpse made by none other than Mr. Dar. Mr. Dar created 3 separate pieces of a figure: a bird's head, a fish's body with a hammer and nail, and a robot's base with a little wheel for legs. And altogether, it creates this surreal piece of artwork. Now, the effects of surrealism were significant. Surrealism went on to inspire other art movements, including abstract expressionism and postmodernism. Surrealism also challenged the traditional idea of what art should be. After all, if you're creating artwork that's difficult to explain and impossible to justify, that's going to turn a couple heads. And yet, even today, surrealist-inspired artwork is everywhere. You see it very often in advertisements, but many artists still create artwork that could fit in with the surrealist movement, and some consider the movement even to be alive today.